Welcome back, guys. Today's episode is coming from the Philippines, and it's that type of case I have never met before. So imagine this. I'm sure that you've been to at least one wedding in your life. Your whole life, I'm sure at least you've attended at least one wedding before. Even if you haven't, I'm sure you've witnessed it on TV or something. Generally, we all know weddings are a very beautiful thing, signifying a marriage, celebrating love, signifying the union of two families joining together to build into the future on the foundations of love, caring, and respect. A marriage, dare I say, is a spiritual thing, and the wedding is one of the symbols that communicates it. So, under no circumstance would you have actually expected that a murder would happen as a result of something that has happened at that wedding. And in fact, the victim of that murder would actually be chopped up into pieces and served as part of the menu for that wedding. Yeah, that is the focal point of today's true crime case. And as I was going through the research, honestly, I had to try and keep my jaw together because it was crazy. But I digress. Let's get into the details. It all started in the August of 2004, where in a remote area of Philippines called Nara, in Palawan, there was a guy called Benji Ganay. Benji Ganay was a young man in his 20s, just a regular person. There was nothing really unique about him. He didn't have wealth. He didn't really stand out in any way. He was just one regular guy. And it so happens that one member of his family, another man in his family, was actually getting married to a woman of another family. So, as is practical, they had set the wedding date and the date had arrived. All preparations were in order and the wedding had commenced, to the point that their type of wedding was the type where before everything is actually completed for the wedding to be solemnized, they go through a certain process where they dance, they eat, as part of the wedding ceremony and everything in between. So Benji Ganay was there as an attendant, or let me say as an attendee, because he was there by virtue of he being a family member of the groom. And it so happens that at this fateful point in time where this whole incident will be triggered, Benji Ganay was part of all the people there, and they were dancing together as part of the ongoing wedding ceremony, and he happened to be behind the bride-to-be. It is not clear whether he tripped or he was pushed, but it's allegedly being reported that Benji Ganay tripped or was falling, and instinctively in trying to balance himself, he as a human being, you have to stretch to hold to something. But unfortunately for him, in him stretching to hold on to something so he doesn't fall, he actually had his hands hit the butt of the bride-to-be, to which she reacted to by being surprised and turning to see what it was. And being the gentleman as he is, and what is actually expected of any other person in such a situation, Benji Ganay insistently apologized to the bride and tried to explain what had happened. The bride herself didn't make much of it, and you could see that she had understood what had happened. But little did Benji Ganay know that there were other people around who took offense to the whole thing to such a level that it will turn out it would be the cause of his life ending on that very day. Because as he was apologizing to this bride-to-be and trying to explain his way out, she eventually was like, okay, so let's continue on the ceremony. And everybody just got back on the bandwagon and they were all making merry. But Benji Ganai did not notice that in all that, the father of the bride-to-be and some male family members of his were standing back and just watching him with that look that silently showed their unity in thought that we have to deal with this guy for touching the butt of our precious female family member. So the ceremony was actually still ongoing, and it had gotten to a point where the marriage had been blessed, so now it was fully time for merrymaking. So the wedding was still ongoing. At which point, the father of the bridesmaid was no longer a key participant to the wedding because he had played his part. And this was when they would start unraveling the evil they had silently connected to commit in thought. Because, per the reports, the bride's father and two other male relatives of his and a third person who would later be identified as Benji Ganai's own cousin called Juni Ganai, adding up to 4, would lure Benji Ganai outside of the ceremony and force him and bundle him into a vehicle and take him into the forest. Now, investigations indicate that, per the confession that they would later give when they were arrested, they said that their main motive from that initial point was to take him to the forest and scare him a bit so that in case he had any silly things in mind, he realizes that they are not playing around. But then when they got to the forest, it's almost as though the evil that was brooding in the mind of the father of the brides had just evolved to a point where it actually wanted to take things a step further. So he brought out a knife, and before anyone knew what was happening, he inflicted several wounds on Benji Ganai and just deleted him. He unalived Benji Ganai right there. And as if that was not enough, they took some palm leaves, put it on him, added a flamant, and then doused him in that flamant. And you can imagine what they did next, just like you do to a barbecue. And when they were done, he cut off a piece of it and shoved it down the throat of the cousin of Benji Ganai, Juni Ganai, and told him to swallow. And he had this sinister look on his face, almost as though he had been possessed by the devil. And if you are listening to this video and following the details up to now, I'm sure you are disgusted. Because I am disgusted. But, well, that's the occupational hazard. And indeed, if you think that this is so evil, I promise you, the case has not ended. Because he would escalate to do even worse. But before I get to that, help me out by just subscribing to the channel. My analytics showed me that most of you watch the videos but do not subscribe to the channel and do not leave a comment. And this is really hurting my channel. I have a goal of hitting at least 10,000 subscribers by the end of this year. And the only thing that can help me achieve that is you, the viewer. Help my channel out. I'm sure you appreciate the work I do, and I promise you I'll keep improving and bringing you better and better. I digress. So after the father of the bride had done this, He served out pieces to his 2 male family members as well, and they all enjoyed it. Then he had another dark thought. He was like, why don't we make sure every other person also enjoys it? So they chopped up his remains and took it back to the event center, quickly snacked into the kitchen and made a meal of it and served it out to all the wedding guests. And at this point in time in the wedding ceremony, it was at that point where people were so drunk, they were enjoying the alcohol to the point that they were not really paying attention to what they are eating. In fact, who actually would do that? If you go to a wedding and they bring you meat, if it's not something like chicken, what you can readily see is chicken, how do you know which type of meat it is? You probably assume, oh, maybe this is goat meat, or this is beef, mutton, or something, turkey or something. But how can you tell that this is an abominable meat being served to you? Not to talk about the fact that you've also taken alcohol and you're probably not in your right senses. This was the disgusting thing that this bride's father instigated and committed with his accomplices. And these wedding guests actually consumed the evidence of it. The ceremony ended beautifully. The married couple went and consummated their wedding on the honeymoon. Everything seemed like normal because Benji Ganai in himself, like I told you, was literally not someone that stood out. So nobody really noticed he was even gone. And they moved on. Days passed, and on the 3rd day, the victim's cousin, Juni Ganai, who had participated, was now hitting his breaking point. He was being haunted by the images of what they've done. Anytime he tries to eat meat, he realizes it's having an impact on him. And you know, there's that type of thing where your conscience just won't let you sleep. That type of situation where it's almost as though the light in you won't just let the darkness stay. And that is the situation that Juni Ganai, the cousin of Benji Ganai, found himself in. He closes his eyes and he sees his cousin he helped eliminate. And he was being haunted so much, he just got up and walked straight to one of the elders of the town and confessed to him that this is what has happened. Now, this elder, old as he is, was blown away because he had been around for so long. He knew the history of that town, and he knew that they have a myth that some people used to be cannibals from back in the centuries ago, but it's not something that anyone would expect was still happening. So for him to be told by Juni Ganai that they had done this and even went on to serve some to wedding guests, he was just blown away and advised him to report to the police. Juni Ganai in himself was also scared and hesitant to report to the police. It's like he was caught between a rock and a hard place because he's already being haunted by his guilt and everything in between for what he has participated in. But then he knows that if he goes to the police, now he would have to contend with the father of the bride. And he has seen how far the father of the bride can go. So I guess you get me now. But under the direction of this elder of the town, eventually he went to the police station with this elder of the town in his company to give him moral support. And he walked straight to the counter at the front desk and openly confessed to what they've done. The police were just standing there and thinking, is this guy in his right senses? And when they ascertained that this guy was serious, he took them to the location, showed them all the evidences. Initially, they couldn't really find anything, but after searching for some few hours, they found the clothing of Benji Ganai. Then they found some pieces of his remains. And they realized that no, this is true. They went on to find more evidence after which they then proceeded to arrest the father of this bride and his other 2 male family members. Guess what? Even at this point, the father of the bride was not yielding. He was behaving as if he's innocent. And then one of his 2 male relatives also broke down and confessed. And 2 confessions from people whose confessions make them willing participants in a crime is a very powerful thing for prosecutors and the law to have on their side in a criminal case, particularly a case involving murder. So it looked like it was going to be an open and shut case. And they were arrested. But this is where it gets strange again. Because after they were apprehended, it's almost as though the case just vanished. I tried thorough research, liaised with other platforms I researched from, and they all report the same thing, that after the apprehension of these culprits, there is no explicit details provided with regards to what happened to them afterwards. They were charged with murder, but that was it. There's no record of whether they were taken to court, whether they were found guilty, whether they were released, whether they were sentenced. I'm not getting any record of it. I don't know. It's very funny. And because I'm not getting any record of it, I'm not going to assume anything. But that in itself adds to the mystery of the case. And you see, this case epitomizes the fact that there are very crazy people walking around. Crazy in quotes. Because look at how this started. Benji Ganai practically slipped and his hand touched the behind of the bride during the bride's wedding ceremony, and that set the bride's father off to the point he just wanted this guy gone off the face of this earth. Later allegations would also indicate that the bride's father allegedly was suspected to be under the influence of some drugs or alcohol, so maybe he was not in his right senses. I don't know. But what I know is alcohol and those substances just brings out the beast you are hiding in you. And it comes back to the same thing. Now, this case also took a toll on that town in itself, because the community of Nara at Palawan in the Philippines is one community that has very beautiful landscapes, from mountains to water bodies. It was a very beautiful tourist attraction. People came from all over the world to watch this. But when this case came out, it shook the whole world actually, because it was all over. And by virtue of that, the town was tagged by some people as the town of cannibals. And travelers no longer felt safe going there, because if this can happen to an indigene of the town, how much more you, the traveler coming from somewhere else, to pass through the town. The town tried finding ways of putting back some good perspectives and perceptions on the town, but it's been an uphill battle, because the case is so gruesome and chilling, and the violence of it shows the depths of human depravity that some members of that society were able to commit, to the point that it makes it very difficult for people to just take it as one of those things and move on. Because this is not about robbery, this is not about stealing. This is a crazy thing. And to have it happen in 2004, where you would expect that people know better, people's tastes have improved, people's wisdom on laws and things have improved, it's not something I expect would go away very soon. Unfortunately for the town, they are paying the price for something that possibly some few bad nuts did. It's very unfortunate. And you can imagine the impact on the guests at the wedding when they found out that what they were enjoying on the menu was actually something they never thought it would be, because some reportedly were complimenting the chef that, my God, you are actually serving us very nice food. Little did they know that it was rather food they would have preferred not to eat at all. And imagine the trauma that leaves, not to talk of the trauma and impact it will have on the bride and the groom themselves, knowing that this happened at their wedding. This is a crime that shakes generations into the future, probably until the end of the earth, because it goes straight into the annals of history as far as both families are concerned, the kids from that marriage are concerned, the town is concerned. Literally, all the guests who were there will have their lives touched by this in one way or the other, negatively. What do you think? Let me know your comments in the comment section. Stay safe out there, and I'll catch you in the next one.